Hercules was an exemplar of the hero for the Stoics, a symbol of the struggle between virtue and vice. He pursued greatness through trials and hardships. If Hercules had not met with his great trials, he would not have become a hero. Each impossible task forced him to develop new strengths. The Nemean Lion taught him resourcefulness when his weapons were ineffective against its impervious hide. The Augean Stables demanded strategic thinking over simple physical strength. Without these specific challenges and others, his potential would have remained dormant. On wondering what would have happened to Hercules had he not faced his 12 labors, Epictetus, the Stoic, said, begin quote, "What would he have turned his hand to if nothing like that had existed? Isn't it plain that he would have wrapped himself up in a blanket and gone to sleep?" End quote. What if the difference between an ordinary life and a more heroic one doesn't need to depend on fate, but simply the willingness to create your own Herculean trials? Hey there, it's me, Core, and you're listening to Exercising Self-Control from Fitness to Flourishing. First things first, do you even want to be a hero? What is a hero exactly? After a lot of research and wanting to keep this simple, I think I've found the best answer in line with virtuous self-control. Lawrence Reed, the author of Real Heroes, Inspiring True Stories of Courage, Character, and Conviction, put it this way, begin quote, "If I had to pick one term above all others as essential to heroism, it would be this: character. A person's character is nothing more than the sum of his or her choices. Fortunately, character is something every one of us has control over." End quote. He goes on to say, begin quote, "What unites heroes across time periods and cultures is that they exemplify character through their words and actions. They embody traits like honesty, gratitude, intellectual humility, personal responsibility, self-discipline, inventiveness, entrepreneurship, vision, compassion, and optimism, and they display these traits continually." End quote. In other words, when you are exemplifying personal excellence, you are living heroically. You are living your highest values and providing an example for others to follow, both through your actions and by modeling choices worthy of emulation. With this in mind, you can choose to introduce situations that will make you more heroic. In other words, just as exercise conditions the body, circumstances condition the character, and you can choose to introduce the circumstances that will produce a preferred set of character traits, strengths, and behaviors. The important distinction here is that you can choose to introduce those conditions yourself. If you don't make those choices yourself, you leave your development in the hands of fate. But which conditions actually work? If we accept that circumstances forge character, we need to identify the specific environmental factors that consistently produce exceptional results. Research in behavioral psychology and peak performance has revealed 3 key conditions that, when properly applied, can transform ordinary capability into extraordinary achievement. These aren't just theories. They're the same principles used by Olympic athletes, successful entrepreneurs, and anyone who has made a remarkable transformation. Those conditions are: 1. A daunting deadline. Other than the ultimate end we all face, here I'm talking about creating an artificial time constraint that applies positive performance pressure. Why it works. Parkinson's law states that a task expands to fill the time allotted for its completion. When you compress time, you force, focus, and eliminate the luxury of procrastination. Research by Locke and Latham in 2002 shows that specific, challenging goals lead to higher performance in 90% of studies. Here's an example in action. An aspiring author who commits to writing a novel in 90 days will produce more than someone who gives themselves, in quotes, someday as a deadline. The constraint forces creativity and momentum. A common mistake to avoid: setting impossible deadlines that lead to burnout rather than breakthrough. The sweet spot is, in quotes, uncomfortably possible. That is, challenging enough to require growth and effort, yet achievable enough to maintain motivation. 2. Accountability. This is not performative. You're not announcing your goal to the world at large. That can actually diminish the likelihood of realizing your goal. You are recruiting an individual, or a group if that's appropriate, that seriously wants you to succeed. They will call you to task for not following through. Here's why it works. The American Society of Training and Development found that accountability increases success rates by up to 95%. Most of us have been conditioned to care more about letting others down than disappointing ourselves. Here's an example in action. A budding entrepreneur who announces their product launch date within their learning cohort, who all are on the same journey. Or consider the fitness transformation of someone who commits to a wedding or a reunion. A common mistake to avoid: choosing accountability partners who won't actually hold you accountable. Your mother, who loves you unconditionally, might not be the best choice. Pick someone whose opinion matters and who won't let you off easy. 3. Daily measurement with relevant metrics. Here's why it works. What gets measured gets managed. Daily measurement creates valuable awareness of progress, stagnation, or backsliding. Ensuring the metrics tracked are relevant to the goal transforms data into quality feedback. An example in action. Someone aiming to lose 15 pounds tracking daily calorie intake with a daily weigh-in. They'll quickly learn the appropriate portion sizes to make better eating choices. A common mistake to avoid: measuring irrelevant metrics instead of meaningful progress. Track lead indicators, that is, daily actions, as well as lag indicators, that is, results, words written, and books completed, sales calls made, and revenue earned. Here's your call to action. Choose one area of your life where you want to develop heroic character. Apply just one of these conditions for the next 30 days. Set an aggressive but achievable deadline for something you've been putting off. Or find an accountability partner who wants you to succeed and will call you out for missing your commitments. Or measure and track at least one key daily action that moves you toward your goal. Will and Ariel Durant in The Lessons of History wrote, begin quote, "The hero is a product of a situation rather than the result being a product of the hero. It is demand that brings out the exceptional qualities of man." End quote. By setting up your own trials, you're training exceptional qualities in yourself. You become better and you make the world a better place. pretty heroic, if you ask me. That's it for today. Catch you next time.